The Red Sea, a vital artery of global commerce, is under attack. For centuries, these waters have served as a lifeline for nations, carrying goods, energy, and hope between continents. Today, that lifeline is threatened as never before. Since late 2023, Houthi rebels in Yemen, allegedly backed by Iran, have unleashed a wave of violence, targeting commercial vessels with alarming frequency. Their attacks are bold, relentless, and increasingly sophisticated, leaving a trail of damaged ships and disrupted trade in their wake. What began as a localized conflict has spiraled into an international crisis, threatening the free flow of goods and shaking the foundations of global trade. Shipping companies are rerouting vessels, insurance rates are soaring, and uncertainty hangs over every shipment that enters these waters. These are not isolated incidents. The Houthis, armed with increasingly sophisticated weaponry, have launched a calculated campaign of disruption. Their arsenal now includes advanced missiles and drones, capable of striking targets with deadly precision. Their targets, oil tankers, container ships, and any vessel deemed to have ties to their perceived enemies, including Israel, the United States, and the United Kingdom. No ship is truly safe, and the sense of vulnerability is growing by the day. The world is watching with growing concern as the situation deteriorates. Ship crews face constant danger, and governments scramble to respond, holding emergency meetings and deploying naval assets to the region. The Red Sea, connecting Asia to Europe through the Suez Canal, is a critical passageway for energy shipments, manufactured goods, and essential commodities. Every day, millions of barrels of oil and countless containers of products pass through this narrow corridor. The consequences of a protracted conflict in this region are far-reaching, with the potential to disrupt supply chains, drive up prices, and plunge the global economy into turmoil. Delays ripple outward, causing shortages on store shelves and uncertainty in markets worldwide. This is not just about ships at sea. This is about the food on your table, the fuel that powers your car, and the stability of the world order. The impact is personal, affecting families, businesses, and communities everywhere. The Houthi attacks are a wake-up call, a stark reminder of the interconnectedness of our world and the fragility of peace. In a globalized era, a single flashpoint can send shockwaves across continents, testing the resilience of our systems. The stakes are high and the time for action is now. The world must come together to protect this vital waterway, restore stability, and ensure that the Red Sea remains a bridge, not a barrier between nations. The Houthi Maritime campaign has been characterized by a chilling escalation, a transformation that has sent ripples of fear and uncertainty across the global shipping industry. What began as sporadic, almost opportunistic attacks has evolved into a sustained and highly organized campaign, one that now threatens the very lifeblood of international trade passing through the Red Sea. This campaign has followed a calculated progression, moving from isolated strikes to a full-blown assault on international shipping. The Red Sea, once a relatively secure corridor for global commerce, has become a battleground where every vessel is a potential target. Experts have identified 5 distinct phases in this escalation, each marking a significant expansion of the Houthis' tactics, ambitions, and the scale of their operations. These phases not only reflect the group's evolving military capabilities, but also their shifting political objectives and willingness to challenge the international community. Phase 1, which began in November 2023, was marked by attacks on vessels directly linked to Israel. This reflected the Houthis' deep ideological opposition to the Jewish state, as well as their close alliance with Iran. The group sought to demonstrate solidarity with Palestinian causes and to project power far beyond Yemen's borders. In Phase 2, the Houthis expanded their list of targets to include ships suspected of transporting weapons or military equipment to Saudi Arabia, their main adversary in the ongoing Yemen conflict. This phase saw a notable increase in both the frequency and boldness of attacks, as the group aimed to disrupt the supply lines of their enemies and assert control over the strategic waterway. Phase 3 marked a dramatic turning point. The Houthis began targeting any vessel they believed had even indirect connections to Israel or its allies. This included ships owned by companies that did business with Israel or that had recently docked at Israeli ports. The criteria for targeting became increasingly vague, making it nearly impossible for shipping companies to assess their risk. This broadening of the target set sent shockwaves through the global shipping industry. Insurance premiums soared, shipping routes were hastily redrawn, and many companies began to avoid the Red Sea altogether. The uncertainty and fear created by these indiscriminate threats made it increasingly difficult to determine which vessels, if any, were truly safe. Phase 4, which began in early 2024, saw the Houthis employ increasingly sophisticated tactics and weaponry. Suicide drones and remote-controlled explosive boats became common sights, capable of inflicting significant damage on even the largest vessels. These new tools allowed the Houthis to strike with greater precision and from greater distances, further complicating efforts to defend commercial shipping. The attack on the tanker Marlin Luanda in January 2024, which resulted in a massive oil spill, brought a new dimension to the crisis. Not only did it highlight the environmental risks posed by the conflict, but it also underscored the potential for long-term ecological damage to the Red Sea's fragile marine ecosystem, threatening the livelihoods of coastal communities. By July 2024, the Houthi campaign had entered its fifth and most alarming phase. The group's operations had grown in scale and sophistication, and the area of risk now encompassed nearly the entire southern Red Sea. The danger zone expanded, and the threat to international shipping became more indiscriminate than ever before. Virtually all shipping in the southern Red Sea was considered at risk, regardless of nationality, ownership, or cargo. The once bustling maritime corridor was now choked with anchored vessels, as shipping companies weighed the risks of passage against the costs of delay. The Houthis had effectively declared open warfare on international shipping, transforming this vital waterway into a no-go zone for many companies. The world now faces a new era of maritime insecurity, with the Red Sea crisis threatening to reshape global trade routes for years to come. The economic ramifications of the Houthi maritime campaign have been swift and severe, sending shockwaves through the arteries of global commerce. What began as a regional security crisis has rapidly escalated into a worldwide economic emergency, with consequences that are being felt far beyond the Middle East. Shipping traffic through the Bab al-Mandab Strait, a narrow choke point at the southern entrance to the Red Sea, has plummeted by over 50%, according to industry estimates. This vital passage, which once saw a steady stream of vessels carrying everything from electronics to food, now sits eerily quiet, as shipping companies scramble to find safer alternatives. The Suez Canal, a vital artery of global trade, has also experienced a sharp decline in transits, as shipping companies seek to avoid the dangerous waters of the Red Sea. The canal, which typically handles about 12% of global trade, is now seeing traffic bottlenecks and delays, with ships idling for days or even weeks, waiting for a safe passage. The increased costs and risks associated with navigating the Red Sea have forced many shipping companies to make difficult choices. Insurance premiums have soared, and logistical planning has become a nightmare, as companies weigh the risks of delay against the dangers of attack. Some have opted to reroute their vessels around the Cape of Good Hope at the southern tip of Africa, adding thousands of miles and considerable expense to their journeys. This detour not only increases fuel consumption and carbon emissions, but also extends delivery times, disrupting carefully calibrated supply chains. Others have chosen to brave the Red Sea, but only with heavily armed escorts, driving up costs even further. The sight of warships accompanying merchant vessels has become a new normal, underscoring the gravity of the threat and the extraordinary measures now required to keep goods moving. The consequences of these disruptions are being felt worldwide. From Asia to Europe and the Americas to Africa, the ripple effects are touching every corner of the globe, highlighting just how interconnected our economies have become. Consumers are facing higher prices for imported goods as shipping companies pass on their increased costs. Everyday essentials from groceries to electronics are becoming more expensive, and shortages are starting to appear on store shelves in many countries. Businesses are grappling with supply chain disruptions as deliveries are delayed or canceled. Manufacturers are struggling to source critical components, retailers are unable to restock inventory, and small businesses are especially vulnerable to these shocks. And energy markets are on edge, as the flow of oil and gas from the Middle East is threatened. Volatility in oil prices is creating uncertainty for industries and consumers alike, with the potential for far-reaching impacts on global growth. The Houthi attacks have exposed the vulnerability of global trade routes and the interconnectedness of the global economy. A single choke point under threat can send shockwaves through countless industries, revealing just how fragile the system truly is. What happens in the Red Sea does not stay in the Red Sea. It ripples outward, affecting businesses and consumers around the world, from major corporations to everyday families, reminding us all of our shared dependence on secure and open trade routes. The international community cannot afford to ignore this crisis. The stakes are too high, and the need for coordinated action has never been more urgent. The future of global trade and the stability of the world economy hangs in the balance. Around the world, governments are watching the situation closely. Some have issued strong statements, while others are quietly weighing their options. It's clear that the international community is struggling to find a unified approach. The stakes are high, and every nation seems to have its own priorities. It's tempting to think that sending more warships would solve the problem, but the truth is, navies alone can't guarantee safety in these waters. There are just too many ships, too much open sea, and not enough resources to cover every threat. So, really, it's a complex challenge that goes beyond military might. The United States, for its part, isn't holding back. Officials have made it clear that attacks will not be tolerated, and they're ready to take action if necessary. Still, this tough stance comes with risks, and some worry it could escalate tensions even further. Looking ahead, the future of the Red Sea remains uncertain. Will the region find stability, or are we heading for more turmoil? No one can say for sure, and for now everyone is left waiting to see what happens next.